It is not enough to talk about mental health. The work is only half done, even when actions are taken. Mindfully with Tumisha, the podcast is putting her mouth where her money is. This November, join us at a Fight for Life as we bring support, awareness, and hope to people who need it the most. Here at Mindfully with Tumisha, we believe that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. So join this crucial fight for life, an event dedicated to raising awareness about men's health and preventing the silent epidemic of suicide. November 23, 2024 at the Rembrandt Hotel, Ikeja. Follow Mindfully with Tumishe for details about registration. Hi, mindful partners, and thank you for joining us again on Mindful with Tumishe. Today, I'm super excited. You all know that we've been planning for a fight for life coming up in November, and I did promise, Ola and I did promise that we're going to have conversations with men up until then, just truly get into the, because of course I'm not a man, I'm not male, so I don't know exactly how these things work for men. So I have is the person I have on the show today. His CV is quite scary. Trust me, very scary. But we're going to try to be laissez-faire with that. So good morning, Mr. Toluse Dove Francis. How are you today? How do you want me to say? Did I call you Tolu? Is it Toluse or Toluse?
Toluse.
Oh my God, Toluashe. What a beautiful name. Yeah. Okay. So how are you today?
I'm awesome. I'm splendid. I tell people that I'm bouncing. I'm excited. It's a new day, and it's good to see a new day.
Okay. So of course we know that in the last 1-2 weeks we've had lots of social media around suicide, and of course September 10 was World Suicide Prevention Awareness Day, and there was a video that was really heartbreaking that I saw, and I just I stopped listening because these things can trigger. So before we start this conversation, let me ask you, as a man, do you think that the society and even women are quite dismissive about men's mental health?
That's a very tight question because I don't think it's tied to the women alone. I think even the male gender themselves are a bit dismissive of mental health challenges that men face. When you tell a fellow guy that something is wrong with you, there's that tendency, if care is not taken, for them to quickly dismiss it by saying, "Oh, let's just go out, let's just go and hang out, let's just grab some bottles and all of that." And so it becomes a bit difficult for you to tell your fellow guy what you're experiencing, because sometimes we think that we have the fix to it, and we just suggest what we think should be done, as against providing that succor, providing that direction towards getting help. For the women, I don't think women are dismissive of men's mental health. What I think they experience is yet to come to terms with the fact that you're supposed to be strong. So how come this thing got hold of you? Right? You are by default the lead. You're by default the macho. You're by default the powerhouse. So how come you're supposed to know when this is coming? So how come it got a hold of you, right? And it's no fault of that. It's very, very understandable because of societal construct. And we cannot talk about mental health of men or women without talking about the environmental and the societal constructs that exist within us. So I think it's expedient to look at it from that angle of a human face and not a gender face.
Oh, thank you very much. First time someone is agreeing with me that there is no gender to this. And I appreciate you bringing that to the fore. And of course, that will set the tone of this conversation as we go ahead. So, can you share a bit of your journey and what inspired you to get involved with mental health awareness?
Okay, just to put that out, I mean, I do beyond mental health awareness, but the journey started in trying to remember, I think that was 2013. So I had come back from school in 2013, and then from youth service in 2013, and I was living with a psychiatrist friend. And when I come back from work, I just go into the room, and I just greet everybody, and I just go into the room, and you won't see me again till the next day. And so one day he blocked me as I entered into the sitting room. I was like, "How are you?" I said, "I'm fine." So I'm not asking how are you physically, I mean, how are you internally? And then I burst into tears. So a backstory, right? I had lost my mom about 8 years before then. And then my paternal grandmother, whom I spent the first 5 years of my life with, died the year after. And then 4 years after the death of my paternal grandmother, I lost one of my favorite aunts in Bauchi, that a wonderful, beautiful physics lecturer at ATB in Bauchi, Alaji Atiku, Tafawa Balewa University. I think that's what the name of the school is. And so all of that grief compounded, and I changed who I was as a person to become quiet, and all of that. And so interestingly, between 2005 and 2011, I had gone through a series of losses that meant so much to me. So first was my mom, and the next was my paternal grandmother. And then I think December of 2010 was when I lost my aunt. And then in 2011 now? No, I think it was same 2010. One of the upcoming comedians, C.D. John, who was a very good friend of mine and was at my house just the weekend before I went back to school, and then passed on just the early morning of his birthday, So all of that, so all of that had compounded, that sort of grief in me. And, I just held on, not even knowing what I was experiencing, and all of that. So I didn't know. So when he said, "I'm not asking external, I'm asking internal," I burst into tears, and I was like, "I'm not fine," And then that was the first time in my life that I was knowing that there was something called grief, right? And because living in an hyper-religious setting, not hyper-spiritual, hyper-religious setting where there is supposed to be a spiritual undertone, but it is a religious undertone that you find out that exists, right? So everything is going as it pleased God, There was nothing like you need to seek help at that point in time, And so it took me through. And then I said to myself, so imagine that I've held this for 8 years. Now, how many more people out there are actually struggling with this? And so that began my journey into mental health advocacy, So I began to read up, and then I began to talk about it. And trust me, as at this time, mental health conversations were not a thing in Nigeria. I can bet on that. I can say that without any sense of pride, probably amongst the first set of persons who were publicly talking about mental health. So as at that time, Instagram was my go-to, right? So I was using Instagram. I had a blog that I was running. I was writing, writing articles. Then I would design a WordPress website for myself. And then I was blogging on mental health, looking at the intersection of mental health, as it were, host people on Instagram, to talk about it. I remember bringing Chude at that point in time and all of that. But then I got to people and I said, look, there's a shortage of healthcare personnel So if people attend programs, because you know how we can do lots of events and then people get gingered, and motivated, but what happens afterwards? I said no. So I decided to get trained to be able to provide help to people. So did psychology, did mental health, did human nutrition, life coaching, a whole lot of them. And so I wrote my first book in 2015 called Eat Fit, a nutritional blueprint for a healthy living, because I realized that there was this endemic of weight loss. And I was asking myself, why are people trying to lose weight? How did you get to that point in the first place? And so it was because of my study that I realized that, there's something called eating disorders, right? So I wrote my first book in 2015, addressing eating disorders and diet as it were, based on my training from human nutrition. And then in 2017, I wrote a book called, so in 2017, I lost my paternal grandfather to tuberculosis. So I wrote a book in 2017 titled Beyond Blue, a step-by-step guide to dealing with grief, loss, and depression, and the forward was written by Praise Forward. And that book, really hit it because people were able to interact with the book, and they were able to understand that, yes, and it did, kind of like spotlight me, because people could relate that finally somebody is saying it. Somebody's able to, men don't really know that what they were experiencing was grief and all of that, but that kind of like put a spotlight on grief. So I majored in grief, depression, anxiety. I would say I stumbled into relationship because I never wanted to be a relationship person. But you see, we often forget that we are social beings, and there is nothing that happens to us that does not sit on relationship.
Yeah.
Relationship is the foundation, whether platonic or romantic or corporate or cordial, it sits on relationship, and so people would reach out to me, they're having issues with their friends, having issues with their partners. Let's talk. Leave your partner, let's talk about you.
Exactly.
And then you dig deep and find a mental health basis or mental health crisis for why those things are happening. So my approach is deal with the person and the mental health issues, the relationship will get fixed.
So
it's that relationship gets fixed, that they come together, or the relationship gets fixed, that they decide that it's better that they go their separate ways. So that's been my journey, basically. I've written other books after then. They're on seller.co, they're on Amazon. I started a YouTube channel where I was talking to people, started creating courses on Udemy, where I'm training counselors or people who want to have an idea, because I believe that everyone deserves to have a knowledge about mental health. Not everyone will be a caregiver, but everyone deserves to have a knowledge about mental health and be able to provide some level of first aid. So there's psychological first aid, there's mental health first aid. So yeah, I have a podcast, I have a YouTube channel, I have books, I'm active on social media, Instagram, now I'm on TikTok, LinkedIn, because I believe that education is major if we're going to deal with mental health culture across the world. If people have knowledge, they will be able to prevent a number of things or safeguard themselves from experiencing a number of things. We must change the message from healing or corrective to preventive. We must educate people to know what to do, what to avoid, so they don't get into that. I was speaking to a group of people recently. I said, look, we must understand that we need to move away from it has happened, now do I fix it, to I don't even want this thing to happen at all. How do I prevent it? So it's been an interesting journey with the ups and downs. I've had reasons to review journals, 2 journals, basically, from time to time, Contemporary Family Therapy Journal and Journal of Clinical Psychology, conferences here and there. It's been an interesting journey with its own weight, because when you have to speak on things like this, it's draining. Right?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you come and speak. You have 1 hour to speak, but you know that you probably have 2 hours, because after every speaking engagement, there are people waiting to ask questions.
Tell me about it.
Whether it is physical or it is virtual. And then COVID came, and COVID exposed the cracks in our relationships. COVID did something to us. COVID did something to us. COVID revealed to us how fragile we are.
Oh, how fragile, very fragile. So, grief. is okay. So people talk about depression, anxiety, and all of that, all the time. But just as you said, grief is one conversation we don't have, or we don't have the tools to navigate. No one has been able to give us kind of the tools to navigate grief, and then we see it. We see it in various parts of our lives, in our relationships. And I'm with you. When people come to me, to my table, and they say, "Oh, I'm eating too much," or "I want to get this into," and then you begin to have conversations, and then voila, that's where it's coming from. It's not rarely the relationship, but the relationship itself. So let's talk about grief for a bit. When you started this journey and you started talking, because of course, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, I'm extremely sure that we were not giving proper coverage to mental health. We were not, because I was in the media, and I know that when we get conversations and we're talking, and then there's a lot of it was extremely dismissive. Fast forward to 2015, end of 2014 towards 2015, when I got diagnosed and I started my own. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm still in the media. I know what is wrong. Let's see how we can get people. But then I kept getting pushbacks. That it's too heavy. It's too heavy to talk about. It's not what you should talk about on radio. It's too heavy to talk about, and all of that. Fast forward to now, of course, we have more conversation. Like you said, 2020 exposed us. It made us understand that we were ostriches and our bomb was high in the sky. So in the beginning, how do you want to compare the beginning when you started speaking, and especially you saying that the book on grief, Beyond Blue is what you called it, the book on grief, highlighted, were there pushbacks, and how was the response before Beyond Blue?
Oh, there were pushbacks, a lot of pushbacks. I mean, I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. Even, I'll give an example. My father didn't understand what I was talking about, right? And trust me, my father is educated, but he didn't understand what is mental health, right? And I kept at it, So I have my first degree in biochemistry, and I initially wanted to study medicine. If I was going to study medicine, I wanted to specialize in the study of cancer, because my mom died to cancer, my paternal grandmother died to cancer. So I was angry with cancer, like, who are you? You this cancer, But like I often tell people, whether they believe or not, God just has a different path for us, right? Because every attempt to get into medicine, it didn't work. And I'm glad it didn't work at the end of the day in the way I wanted it to work, because I wouldn't have done psychiatry as at that time. Yeah, because I didn't have knowledge about this as at that time, So I did. It didn't make sense to a number of persons, like mental health. Like, it's the white people that are talking about mental health. What are you talking about in Nigeria? Who wants to put money? Who wants to organize a program and ask you to come and speak on mental health and pay? Like, what are you talking about, bro? Which was why Instagram became a thing for me. So I remember then my dad would be like, "This thing you're talking about. This thing you're talking about." Now let me just give you an insight. So as at that time, as at 2007, my dad had left the country to go study in Europe, right? And that was when he started understanding this thing I was talking about, because he had left home, he was by himself, his family was back at home, he was missing the family. Sometimes he would call, ask me to do a video of the house. He wants to see everybody. And camera phones were also not very, very much of an easy to get thing around that time. It was expensive. I remember then that I was visiting Ladipo every month. I'll go to Ladipo, buy cheap BlackBerry phones, take it to school, use it when I come back on holiday. I go to Ladipo, sell it, buy another one. Just small money, as at that time, And so, I would use that, snap everybody, and all of that. And so it was then you began to see, okay, so this thing is this thing. So it was when I started appearing on TV, then you would watch some and then say, okay, why not do this? Why not do this? Because in this study, he started seeing psychology, he started reading about psychology. It became part of what he was doing so he could understand. And so it's been a journey, right, between then and even, in fact, I would say the journey from 2010 to 2015 was a whole lot of push, right? Because I love to read, right? So for me, the human thinking is fascinating to me. And I would always ask the whys, I feel like if I'd done philosophy, maybe it would have thrown me into a different world entirely. So it didn't make sense to people. That, you come and say, you're a mental health advocate, what? Even applying for grants, people that were getting grants or getting good money were those in the sexual and reproductive health. There was heavy funding for sexual and reproductive health then because of the AIDS scourge around that time. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy marketing yourself and telling someone that you're a mental health advocate or you want to come and talk to them about mental health. Okay, just come and talk and go.
That
really give the audience.
So let's in your opinion, let's take because let's look at it now, because we have to, even now that it has become almost ubiquitous, people are now using it as crutches as against, actually sitting down with themselves and all that. So in your opinion, what do you think comes to an average man and an average Nigerian's mind when you say mental health?
So if you go on the street, if you go on the street of because if you go on the street of Nigeria, there's no one word answer. So I usually say that the kind of response that you get is dependent on three things. One, the level of education of the person. Two is not level of education, level of literacy, not education now, level of literacy of the person. Two is the environment the person operates. Right? And three, the religious belief. So if you meet someone who is literate enough to know that something exists around me, maybe they don't have a full grasp of it, they would want to listen to you, right? If you meet someone who exists in the slum or the ghetto or the kind of work that they do, the transporters and all of that, man, you're capping rubbish. As far as they are concerned, what does that mean?
Okay, what's wrong with me? What's it? Yeah.
You understand? And then the third sect is, oh no, God forbid, it can't happen. That's not your portion. And then they bind and cast, you're healed by the stripes, and all of that. Oh, and then they quote all the surah or the hadith and whatever. And so there's no one word to it. It's dependent on these three cards. That's my own experience, my own finding, interacting with people. Because I've had the opportunity to speak across those three sectors, where I go into the villages to speak in local dialects to them on mental health, talking to bus drivers on mental health, talking in churches, religious gatherings on mental health, and of course, talking to corporate organizations, large or small, on mental health. And I've seen that even the most educated, even some medical doctors still have something around mental health. They feel that now, person don't chop belly food. Now, they talk about mental health.
And I agree with you. And I agree with you perfectly. Yeah, I agree with you.
So yeah, it's not fixed to one response, and that's why how we pass the message across to them, how we approach them, determines how they will receive it, right? So I often say that you must take them from what they know to what they don't know. You can't. It's like you can't take someone from primary 1 to GSS1, what they call basic 1 now, I think, to I don't know what they call it now, right? You have to take them from what they know to what they don't know. So let me draw an example. It was kind of an example that I used during my TEDx Oshogbo talk in 2017 or 2018. So everybody understands the term madness. Everybody knows that there is madness, even though we don't use the word madness anymore because now termed as derogatory. But So you want to start a conversation with someone who is not literate enough, educated enough about mental health. Just ask questions around madness. You have to grab the attention of the person, and then you gradually get the conversation going with the person. But if you start by saying, so there's something called mental health, blah, 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 you will lose the fellow, right? But look for something around that this person can relate to, right? And then use that as the teaching aid, to pass your message across to the person. And I think this cuts across different fields of endeavor, basically, because it's then important that we are able to move people from what they don't know to what they know, rather, to what they don't know.
All right. Okay, so
that way you're able to pass the message to that, which is why. Yeah, go on.
Okay. No, please, I need you to finish that thought because I didn't hear it. Okay. What they know to what they don't know.
Yeah, which is why what they know to what they don't know, which is why if we're going to do materials, make them simple enough for people to understand. Take off the jargons, right? Nobody needs to understand whatever jargons you are using. Make it as simple as we want to explain bipolar. Use poles to explain it. From this pole to that pole, from that pillar to this pillar, from this wall to that wall. You want to explain depression, how it's like that dark room. Don't start using, you feel all gloom and all these things. That guy at the bus stop at the park doesn't understand what gloom means. So you things like, I've never experienced where it seems like
I'm losing it.
Everything is cloudy in your face, just make it relatable to them. And in fact, because yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. It's better now. Yes.
So you don't use the word gloom, for example. You don't use the word gloom for them. You can use things like, have you found yourself in a situation where everything is cloudy? You speak in their dialect, Oshu, Ojushu, just speak in something
that they can understand. Let me
that they can understand.
Let me bring this home to you, so that you understand that I am presently also in that phase. Of course, everybody knows. Of course, the House of God brought Basharun God back into our forefront, and I was watching Basharun God. I was watching the House of God, and
House of God, yeah.
Yeah. And then,
by the way, that gas son, I've forgotten his name now. The tall one, the tall fierce one.
The tall fierce one. I can't remember the name either.
Yeah, Jide. We're classmates in uni. We studied about chemistry together, and then he's a medical doctor.
Oh, nice. That's really nice. And then I'm watching that, and of course, because of where I am, and I'm like, he became this kind of person because his brother was brutally murdered in front of him. And these things have been with us. And when I'm talking with someone, I said it on the podcast before, and then I said, okay, let me go back to watch Efusheto Aniwura. Right? Yes, we all know that she was such. And then I see that unresolved grief is what caused these people to tap into the dark triad, and then just went Machiavellian with everybody. And Efusheto, who was married a couple of times, then eventually she had a baby, but then the husband died, and then she lost this baby while the baby was having, when her daughter was having a child. Of course, that will mess with everyone. So these things have been around us, and we have things in Yoruba that we have terms in Yoruba, abisinwi, we have these things, which is postpartum psychosis. These things have been with us, yet we've not been talking about them. So my question to you then will be that how do we talk around this mental health stigma? All right, because that when people want to get married and they're doing trying to find out what's going on, the kind of family they want to get married to. And they say, I've been seeing one and everything. That wedding is not going to happen. So how do we navigate this history that has been with us as we try to change the narrative?
I'm being very candid with you. History is history, right? History is there to help us learn, not to make the mistakes that people who have gone ahead of us made. So you can either choose to learn from other people's experience or choose to learn from your own experience. And I think that one of the components or one of the things that should form one of the things that's from the core components when intending couples start dating is to ask history, of illnesses in their families, right? Because like you and I know, some of these illnesses can be genetical, right?
Definitely.
Can be hereditary, right? Now, it may not show up in your own generation. It may not show up in the generation after you. It could be years after, right? And then you're like, oh, what happened? How come? And they start saying, oh, it has never happened in our family before. Oh, maybe it has happened generations before. Or it's even starting with your own generation, So, and because of lack of literacy, it could have happened years before. But those things that around Abiku that we used to talk about in those days, and the likes. It was purely medical, but we add the spiritual intonation to it or religious intonation to it and all of that. So it's important to ask some of those vital questions, right? The person might find it offensive, but it prepares you, for anything that could happen. And as I tell people that, look, if you're going to date someone, unless you are just playing around, be open about your health status, your health history, right? For example, if you experienced depression before, be open to your intending partner, because you can have those low moods sometimes, and your partner is wondering, what did I do? What's my offense? And it's not about her, it's not about him, but because the person has the knowledge, able to say, I don't know, the person is like, okay, able to serve as, because that's what love does, right? Love allows you to be that help towards that person and be that source of relief, as it were, towards the person. So we may not be able to change what other family has experienced and whether the intending person's family would be willing to still go ahead with the nuptials, but you can't throw away the history, right? I think that part of building the trust that someone would have for you is you being open about your family, is you being open about your experience with people, is you willing to share, with whoever it is that, look, this is my family, this is my family. How much is too much? Unfortunately, you have to determine. You have to decide. Yes,
yeah.
Right.
But so
you have to decide.
In a situation where you don't know, when the people don't know.
Exactly. So in a situation where they don't know, don't know. They didn't know. Don't hold it against them. And it's very possible that they don't know. Because take, for example, so this is my generation. There is my father's generation. There is my father's father's generation. There is my father's 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 generation, 4 generations, right? If it wasn't told to the 4th generation before me, there is no way my great-grandfather would know, my grandfather would know, my father would know, I would know. So imagine you meet me and we want to get married or we want to date, and you ask him, like, I don't know. And then one day, just one day, a conversation is happening by someone who knew about it from some generations ago. And they come and like, so you didn't tell me. I'm like, but because the information is not passed down, right? They don't know. But in a situation where they know or where that knowledge is there, it's important to let it out. If the person decides to go ahead, fine. If the person decides not to, no matter how painful it is, it's fine. You would have saved yourself some sense of integrity and trust.
All All right, so let's bring it down to men's health, working towards Movember. November. Of course, I'm sure you know about Movember, where brave men blow mustaches in parts of Europe to speak to suicide prevention and prostrate health. And of course, like I said earlier, before we started recording, that we are having more and more cases. Of course, the statistics are crazy. We have, at least from the one that we know, we have one man died to suicide or by suicide every 90 minutes. It's crazy. And for every death, there's been 25 attempts. I was somewhere yesterday on a radio show, and the presenter was telling me that some man just committed suicide because he heard or he found out that his children were not his, and all of that. Let's bring it down to men. How do we navigate this conversation or this societal conditioning that says that a man is strong, and because he is strong, he should not, he doesn't have the permission to feel? I'm saying that in huge parentheses now, because that's how it comes off sometimes, that men don't have the permission to feel. So how do we navigate it in these times?
So there's been a lot of conversation around man up, right? I remember being featured. I remember being featured on a short documentary on mental health called Man Up, and it's unfortunately that idea is sold from generation to generation to generation, right? And unless we want to deceive ourselves, it will take generations to generations to change it. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with bullying, right? The person who is a senior now was bullied as a junior, and so he's been waiting for when he'll become a senior to retaliate. And the junior that is bullying now is waiting for when he or she will become a senior to retaliate. So it's important that we start teaching the boys of now that it's okay for them, for them to cry, for them to feel, for them to express themselves, right? It's okay for them to feel in the way they feel and let it out. And we need to keep educating the society not to judge, and to understand that men as human, they're as human as females as well. And the need to show care and empathy. I was sharing with a group of people over the weekend that at some point we began to focus on the female gender, that we neglected the male gender, forgetting that the girls that we're paying attention to will go back to the world to meet these boys that we have neglected. And so the statistics that we have for suicide tells us that we have more men who complete suicide than women. We have more women who attempt it than men. Why do you think that exists? The care, the attention that we give to the girl child. If a daughter walks to the mom now to say, oh, this, that, there's a tendency that both mother and father will grab the child quickly and say, no, it cannot happen. Whereas a boy child, like, I was wrong with you now. You should know how to, and all of that. So let's begin from the home front. To let that boy in nursery, that 6-year-old boy, that 3-year-old boy who is crying, like, stop crying. Have you seen boys cry? To let them know that it's okay for them to feel. You should not be worried. You should not be worried about having effeminate people, right? You should not be worried about having effeminate guys. I mean, they're human beings, right? The gender hasn't changed. The genitals haven't changed. The sex hasn't changed. They are just effeminate, which is hormonal. Doesn't change who they are. So let's stop all these conversations, all these talks around, stop being like a girl, I don't understand. Is there a way that girls behave? No. So we must begin to have that conversation with boys from very tender age, 3, 6, to let them know that they can express themselves, that they are crying, that they feel pain, doesn't make them less of a human being. We must pass that message to them that, first of all, you're a human being, you have blood running through your veins, you have emotions, you have hormones. I think it's okay for you to feel the way you feel. It is how you address it that now matters. You don't say because you are angry and then you become violent. You don't say because you are pain, then don't cry. But instead of you now crying, you now become resentful, and all of that. And then change this narrative as if boys or men are the only ones who get angry. Everyone gets angry, right? So the stereotype needs to change, and it begins with us. It begins from the house. I mean, you see families where the girl does something and he's beaten almost to stupor, but the girl does the same thing and it's just some strokes of the cane and she's told not to do it anymore. Why? Because there is that already construct in your head that he has a tendency of being aggressive, he has a tendency of being violent or exercising his anger. Come on, we need to do better as a people.
So, what do you think the future holds for men? Because I know that you were in the manly space for a bit. So, drawing on that experience, what do you think the future holds for men's health awareness in Nigeria?
I think it will get better with time. People are paying more attention to it now than they used to before. People are creating content around it. There are foundations around it. I know a friend of mine runs a wonderful foundation in support of it. It's called Laughter After Abuse, and it was focused about the fact that men also get abused, right? And so her foundation is catering to men, and ensuring that men are looked into. So there is that light that is beaming on men's mental health now. Are we there yet? No. Because honestly, even for mental health as a whole, we are not there yet. So we cannot be there as a whole for men. But organizations need to do more, pay more attention to it. And I mean, on International Women's Day, you send them to spa and all of that. Who says that men don't like to go to spa? Who says that we don't like? Who says we don't like to have some massage? Who says we don't like to have some pedicure? It's not all about the wallet, the belt, the shoes and the likes. Give us some body care stuff as well. I mean, for God's sake, pamper us. Yeah,
and that's what a fight for life. Yes, that's what the fight for life is going to do. Come November, come have fun. We're going to we're going to, because it's a mental health and it's a mental health event. Yes, we'll have psychiatrists come speak. But we intend to just pamper people. Men, not people. Let me not say.
I want to be pampered.
Men, come, play, talk, connect, guided meditation. Let's have conversations where men. The only thing that's come to my head when I was talking with my partner is, I just want a place where, now that you've talked about pampering, I think I should get a friend of mine who owns, maybe we should get some people, pedicures in the whole day and let people just have fun, let them be cared for. Because I that, no, not that I think, I know that if the man with the boy child is properly cared for and given tools, then that girl that we are teaching how to fight wouldn't have to fight. Won't have to fight. And I'm sure people are tired of me saying this because I say it on every forum. I have a 13-year-old, and he was talking about a boy. I have a 17 and I have a 13. And my boy was saying to me, he's in boarding school, and he was narrating a story in his class that some girl was pushing at some boy, and everybody was saying, "Don't touch her, she's a girl." And then he comes back home and says, "Mommy, it's fine. I understand girl empowerment and all of that. Everybody's teaching the girl how to fight. Who's teaching us how not to start the war?" And Dad was like, "Okay." I was like, why did you say war, not not how to fight? I said, because boys and men generally can fight. But the war is on the inside. Without a war, you can't fight.
The inside,
So and I'm an only girl. I have all brothers. So I think for me, it's looking at my brothers, looking at my son, and hoping that we can, like you said, begin to change the narrative,
Mhm.
one boy child, one man
At a time.
Because until we
Yeah.
get to that point and stop all the gender drama and war, that we don't know who started or how it started, who would go nowhere. All right,
Exactly.
because I know I've stolen lots of your time, before I let you go, what role do you see organizations like the one you work for and the one you're working for right now, and your own organizations and people like you and I, what roles do you see us play in the Nigeria's mental health space moving forward?
So I think that I think that the mental health field in itself has been unfair. So you have child and adolescent mental health, you have women's mental health, and all of that. You have attention to postpartum depression. Who is paying attention to the mental, what we call, is it peripartum? Oh no, is it peripartum now? I can't remember what it's called again. Depression. Organizations are doing better now. When your spouse gives birth as a man, they also give you some time off, to go support and things like that. So I think that we're progressing gradually, and every organization should play a role in making men seen. And you see, the thing is, it's not until you talk about mental health that you affect the mental health of a person. The action that you take as an organization goes a long way, to show that you actually care about the mental health of the person, as against just talk about mental health. Some people don't even need to talk about mental health, but just do things that makes them seen, right? So let's continue to have those conversations. Let's continue to do those things that makes men feel seen, right? That makes them recognize. Now in the World Federation for Mental Health, we have a workplace section, right? And one of the things that we're looking at is, if you're doing workplace mental health, or mental health in the workplace, in one way or the other, you're touching genders. I love what an organization did some years back for International Men's Day. They had like a special gathering for their male staff. Took them to the office. They had this game. They played games, invited them to come and speak, gave them properly well curated gifts, right?
Nice.
And it did touch them. Oh yes, it did touch them. Then later in the evening, took them to the cinemas to see a movie. They pampered them. That day was an off work for them. They did it on the weekend. Yeah, on the weekend, they pampered them. Are you providing, if you have the opportunity to, if you're working very late at the office and you don't want to go, is there a place they can sleep? As against going through that stress of going home late. You want them to deliver. Can you have them deliver while not under pressure, so that productivity is still solid? We're still a long way from there, but I think we're getting better. And as we keep amplifying our voices, it's definitely get better.
All right, let me put you in the spot for a bit before I let you go. If you have a 5-minute conversation, if you had a chance, if you could have a 5-minute conversation with your younger self, what's the one piece of advice you would give him about navigating life and mental health?
So I would say that you must first of all remember they are the most important person. So whatever decision you want to take, think, how does this affect me? Because how it affects me you'll be positive towards others. If it affects you negatively, you would reflect it towards others.
All right. So lastly, I promise, but because I'm going to start. Lastly, what word would you give to a man who's listening now and feels overwhelmed with other thoughts, with what is going on, and how important his life is? What would you be saying to him?
So what I'm going to say is, don't allow yourself to be strong when you can actually show your weakness.
There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot, but if we get into that conversation, we won't leave here. But
So let's just leave it like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thanks for having me.
Toluse. Toluse, I got it? Yeah, Toluse, for sharing yourself with us. I told you that his TV was impressive, and I'm really, really grateful. And I hope that I see you at a Fight for Life in November. Even if, don't worry, I will get you contact. I will do that. Thank you so, so, so much. And I pray that as we continue these conversations on every forum, we will begin to raise an army of the healed, and hopefully Nigeria will rise from them.
Hopefully.
All right. Thank you, guys, Mindful Partners, for being part of Mindfully with Chimishe today. You know how I say it: love yourself, love your neighbor, love your country. Above all of this, love God. He is the essence of your being. Until next time, stay curious and take care of yourself.